You know, it's funny though. As time goes on, I tend to think that the black belt is not as special as it once was. Only because when you see, I don't, you know, I guess when you see a lot of black belts that don't know self-defense.
Yeah.
You know, but then again, you know, once you get your black belt, once you run a school, you can create your own criteria technically. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is just a generic term, just like paper plate is a generic term. They're all paper plates, but you have different standards of paper plates. And the same thing is happening with Jiu-Jitsu. It's kind of a bummer that you know, Kama Jiu-Jitsu, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, Hicks and Gracie Jiu-Jitsu gets all lumped in with the paper plates of Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
And I think though that the way the growth is going, things are going more the generic way rather than the true meaning or reason why people do Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and what made Gracie Jiu-Jitsu so special versus other martial arts.
Yeah. And that's you know, the reason why, just think about it, the reason why everybody took Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, right, is because it's so highly effective. Yeah. So you kind of want to preserve that. I mean, it's kind of a nice thing. You know, if you get a black belt in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, it used to be pretty meaningful. Yeah. I mean, nowadays, because the gyms are split off and stuff like that, and you kind of, you know, just to exaggerate a little bit, you know, you go into like the YouTube and you find all these fake black belts running around. He throws a black belt. I mean, that's not what we're talking about here, but you kind of get my meaning, right? The guy he buys a black belt, puts it on, and he walks in the gym, and he starts rolling around. It's you're not a black belt, you're a fake black belt, right? That also has kind of a weird meaning too, right? I mean, you can spot a fake black belt.
Well,
any other art, can you spot a fake black belt? Have you ever heard of fake black belt before Gracie Jiu-Jitsu? I don't think you have. Not really, right?
There probably was, but anytime you have something that's difficult to get, then you tend to have a lot of people who want to have that too, but don't want to go through the effort to get it the correct way. No. So, you know, it's funny because, you know, you mentioned fake black belts. So what is a fake black belt? Is a fake black belt somebody who went and bought the belt and just put it on? Or is a fake black belt somebody who got a black belt that didn't really earn a black belt by traditional standards?
That's a good question. I mean, you take it to extremes, but we know what a fake black belt is. A fake black belt, you know, in pretty much everybody's standard, I would venture to guess, is somebody who has never taken jiu-jitsu, threw a black belt on him, and he walked into a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu gym, and or a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym, if you want to use that term, and try to fight, and he knows nothing about the art. So that's the extreme. But I think, you know, maybe what you're saying is like, you know, we have black belts now that have taken jiu-jitsu license and they've gotten their black belt. Are they truly black belts? And I says, well, based on their standards, yeah, they're black belts and stuff like that. Are they to the one standard for Gracie Jiu-Jitsu? There is no one standard. There is no one standard that anybody goes by. Everybody's got their own freaking standard. Yeah. So by which standard is he not a black belt? That's why I think some black belts get mad. And when people say, hey, I'm a black belt, I got my black belt. I've been doing it for like 5 years. I got my black belt. I says, yeah, but you get your ass handed by all kinds of blue belts everywhere in the world. Are you really a black belt? It's like, you know, he's a black belt. They created a standard. He rose to the level of that standard, and he made black belt under that standard. Yeah. So it's a different standard, you know. So that's why I say, I mean, you should go to one standard and say, okay, this is the standard for black belt. This is the standard for belts. This is the one standard. It has more meaning. When you have everybody creating their own standards, is he really a black belt? Yeah, he's a black belt based on that standard. And says, tomorrow I'm going to write another standard, and we're going to have a whole bunch of black belts. They're all going to be about 2 years old. And they're going to be like terrific based on my standard. Yeah. Right. So, I mean, you can come up with any kind of standard you want, you know. And then not to disrespect their standard, I mean, but they have their standard, and they believe that if that guy reached that level, you know, I'm just guessing here, they reached the level of their standard, to them, he's black belt. To us, I mean, to me, I mean, I've been under Hickson, I mean, some of those black belts are not black belts. I mean, it's like, you know, if you don't know a lot of self-defense, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, to me, and to our standard, I mean, if you don't know self-defense, you're not good. You can't defend yourself in a fight. You know, like, you know, when somebody comes in your gym to some level, then you're not black belt. You know, you disgrace the art if you can't do that, right? Because that's what the art was built on, is to be able to fight in the street, no holds barred, and fight really well. Royce is a good example of that. Hickson's a good example of that. I said, if you can't do that successfully, or even like to some level of respectability, then you disgrace the art a little bit, right? I wouldn't want that black belt.
Like John Gruden, who was the coach for the Raiders and then went on to coach the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to a Super Bowl. He was never a football player. He was a career coach. He coached under Bill Walsh as an assistant, or he worked his way up as an assistant and then worked his way up to winning a Super Bowl as a coach. You don't need to be a top NFL player to then move on to being a coach. Just like you don't need to be a top jiu-jitsu fighter to then move on to being a jiu-jitsu professor, because the skill set often is very different to be a champion fighter versus being a top coach and
true.
teacher.
Very true.
But at the same time, if you're going to be a coach or an instructor in jiu-jitsu, my thought is you need to at least have that level of knowledge. And alluding to your comment earlier, when you see a blue belt who hasn't spent that many years in jiu-jitsu to where you could justify saying you're sandbagging this guy and you're holding him back, he should be wearing a brown belt. But this blue belt goes and torches a black belt, and with only his limited knowledge at that time from white to blue versus a black belt who's supposed to have a much greater depth of knowledge, and this black belt with a greater depth of knowledge couldn't deal with this blue belt, then something is wrong. And you know, I'm not a person who is in any authority to make a judgment on that, but I can look at it and think to myself, what's going on here?
And you're talking more about technical ability, not physicality, right? So
yeah.
The technical ability, the black belt just didn't have the technical ability to deal with the blue belt, and you're kind of saying that the blue belt was to a normal blue belt standard, and the black belt was not able to deal with somebody in a blue belt, you know. So, but I get that.
I'm not saying that the blue belt wasn't a good blue belt. I mean, he had to have been a good blue belt, but still falls within the parameters of what a blue belt is.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't. I'm still trying to figure this one out in my head on my own, because I'm not the best black belt around. I'm sure there's got to be some blue belts that are around my physicality and age or whatever that could beat me, but I really don't think so. I don't know. It's just you kind of have an expectation for what a black belt would be at, and then when they don't meet that level, then it's, you know, I guess I have to tell myself not everybody had the good fortune of being able to learn under you, who got to learn under Hickson, or me having to have we're special in that not many people will ever get to say they trained under Elio's sons.
Yeah. Well, eventually they'll die off, and then it's kind of inevitability, right?
Yeah, or yeah. You know, but even when you think about it, I think the only ones that are left that have active academies going are Hoyler and Holker and Hobbit, the youngest ones. Well, of those brothers, you know, Hoyler is back in the U.S. now, I think. Yeah, he's in the U.S., so I think he has an academy going. But Jorge and Gracie retired. His sons run his academy now. Hicks and Gracie retired. His son runs the academy now. Hoist doesn't run an academy. He retired out of the Gracie Academy. Now he runs a seminar circuit. And then who else? Helson retired. He runs his association now. He just does the seminar circuit as well, but he doesn't have an academy anymore. So You can learn under them in a seminar setting, but you cannot be there in the day-to-day. You show up for class and one of Elio's sons is going to be teaching you. That doesn't happen anymore. Well, you can do a private session, but it's not day in and day out where you get to know them on a deep personal level because you're training under them every day and they're personally guiding your journey through, right? Hickson guided his journey through. Dave guided my journey through. And Dave's guiding Greg's journey through right now. But you no longer have those people that can be guided by a Gracie himself. That's it.